View from the Gutters, episode 93. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss 3, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 5406.
We should get started, though, because it's like 8:40.
Yep, I'm ready to go. We've been recording for 14 minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Episode 93.
That's right, you did it!
I did.
Good
View from the
job.
Gutters. I'm Andrew Chard.
Brant Gillihan-Eddy.
I'm Kayleigh Fleeman.
I'm Tobiah Panshin.
And I'm Cade Reynolds.
Woo.
Yeah.
I'm a little low energy because I've been sick for like 2 weeks, but I had a lot of coffee earlier. So
Yeah, I've been like fighting off a cold for at least a week or
it's
two.
that season.
Yep.
It's the season in the Northwest where, oh shit, it got cold all of a sudden season.
Well, we're only getting the edge of it. The middle of the country is getting shellacked.
Oh yeah, they're getting destroyed, but it was like nice last week or 2 weeks ago. It was like still like pretty warm, and then like 2 days later it was like, oh, and now it's winter.
Yep.
17 degrees.
Yeah, that happened over the course of like 2 days, I feel like.
Yeah, it was
So,
pretty quick.
Everybody got sick, and welcome to the Northwest.
Yeah. Welcome
Apparently
to View from
we
the
had
Gutters.
snow in Tumwater.
Did we?
Yeah, which
I
is like
didn't-
right south of where we live. So
Didn't see that.
it's weird.
So what are we talking about?
We're talking about 3, the image book 3.
Thrace?
Yes.
No.
I don't know
How do you
3
say
in
Greek?
Greek. I was just going to say, I took Greek in college. I don't remember. It's been too long. Anyway.
So yeah, 3 by Kieron Gillen.
Yes.
And you pitched it,
I
Chard.
Did. I reread it today.
Do you want to start off on a
Yeah,
conversation?
I'll start it off. Yeah. I still really dig the book. I'm a big history buff, and like I love this time period. So I think a lot of what I really dig is how it ties into the actual history of the time, and then how it like kind of weaves a fictional tapestry like based off of that. So it's able to take these events that people know really well, like the Battle of Thermopylae, and then the fall of Sparta to Thebes. Is that who? Or Athens?
Yeah, Thebes.
Whoever took over Greece after that. Mystery buff, but I don't remember things. It's tough. So like it fits into that narrative, and like the king at the time the book takes place is like known for specific events happening and like letting certain things happen to the country or the nation state of Sparta. And it's cool to like kind of fit fiction into a historical setting. And for all the press that 300 gets via the movie and the Frank Miller book, I think there's not enough historical fiction books out there for comics, and so I kind of dig when they come out because I dig into them.
I think the historical accuracy of it, to the extent that you can be historically accurate, is probably the coolest part of this story.
Yeah,
And like I read the back matter in all the back of the issues where it's Gillen interviewing the history professor that he tapped to like get all of this stuff right.
yeah,
And they're talking about like the Spartans didn't write down their own history.
right.
All of the history of Sparta that we have comes from things that were written down by like Plato and Aristotle, like
Right.
Athenians. And we don't know how accurate this is. There are things that we think we know that are really just conjectures.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the best recreation of it that we can kind of assume.
Mm-hmm.
And Gillen even talks about like, well, this historian thinks this thing and this historian thinks this other thing. And so I kind of split the difference between them and kind of presented it in this middle ground way.
And that's kind of how ancient history works. Like in modern history, a primary source is someone who was there. And in ancient history, a primary source is someone who was alive within 300 years of the event, which is a lot less accurate than someone who was there. And then you have to remember that a lot of the writings of Plato and Aristotle that we have, like that's our lineage to this event or to these like to this nation state, Sparta. A lot of what we have from them is not their original Greek writing, but what was translated into Arabic And then when their original Greek writing was lost, when like the great libraries were burned down during the Western Dark Ages, was translated from Arabic back into Western languages. So
Nothing really changes much when you translate from one language to another.
yeah, right. There's obviously Brant's making a jest, but there's translating. There's translating for meaning, and there's translating for accuracy, and those are very different. And so, especially with like idioms and all kinds of stuff like that, is like how should you portray translations? And so there's a lot about ancient history that we don't actually know. And then I think it's so funny that up until the age that you're 18, every history classes, you're like, nope, that's the way it happened. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's the way it happened. And then you turn 18 and go to college and they're like, we have no fucking idea what happened. And you're like, wait, why did no one tell me this earlier? Like I memorized all this shit and you don't know? Oh my God. And that's what fascinated me about history, was just like, especially ancient history, was just like...
Yeah, and it's amazing how much there is that's out there that is just based on like, oh yeah, we heard this from like one document.
Right.
Like we have one document that has a reference to this thing.
Yeah.
And like we've kind of cobbled together what we think it was like from that.
And like what was the daily life of average citizen's life at each time period is something that's really hard to replicate, because no one writes about the common folk. Like they write about nobles and warriors and soldiers, and like
everything that we know about Rome comes from one guy who wrote like a 50-volume history of Rome. And we don't have all the volumes.
There's some guys, there's guys that wrote about different emperors, and there's like the history of Diocletian, and there's Pliny the Elder, and there's like then there's lots of I forget, it was a Diocletian. There's an emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire, like when they moved the capital to Constantinople. I'm going to remember this all wrong, but he was basically the state historian, and he was tapped to draft the history of this family, and so he wrote this history about the family. And then when they all died, he wrote another history that was like, no, this is what it was really like, but what I couldn't say. This is like the TMZ uncut version of the history of that Roman family that I couldn't talk about while they were alive. They were assholes. And so if we had lost one or the other of those, it would have been like, we would have a completely different perspective on what life was like for people at that time. So plus there's all the cultural like misunderstandings about history, and just like stuff that we assume is fact and like isn't, because we're like, oh, I heard that in primary school once, or like middle school, and then it's like, actually it's not really how that works.
It's even down to that weird stuff where they did spectral analysis on the statues of stuff, and like actually turns out they were all painted very bright and vivid colors that make them look horrid.
I like that in this book, that they're all painted, like they all look
that was
like people. I like
and
that.
Again, like that's, I think, probably the coolest thing about this book is just how much effort was put to make it historically accurate.
Did his homework.
Yeah, I dug it.
And on that vein, like, I didn't dislike this story, but I kind of felt sort of meh about it, because like, I mean, there's an interesting story happening with the slaves, and they're like making their last stand, and that's all really cool. But I think the story suffers a little bit because I think Gillen got really wrapped up in this idea of, I'm going to kind of write this rebuttal to 300 and I'm going to make it super historically accurate. And like he got very wrapped up in like the idea of his story that he forgot to make it like a really awesome story in and of itself. And I think that detracted from my enjoyment of it.
Yeah, I would agree. And this isn't the fault of the comic, but when I was downloading it, it took a really, really, really long time. And I had thought that it was because it was really long. And so I was reading it yesterday, and it was suddenly over.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready for it. And I was like, but that can't that can't be everything. Like, you took 5 hours to download. That can't be everything. Like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, you weren't here when I pitched it, and I was like, it's 5 issues, it's super short, it's really fast.
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought it was going to be super long, especially because it was like a rebuttal to 300. Yeah. And I was like, that movie's really long.
Well, that book
yeah,
is
but the
really
movie's
short.
long, but the book's really short.
Is it?
It's
See, I haven't read
super
the
short.
book.
That
I didn't really like the movie.
In that vein of
issues?
thinking, 3 is like 3 or 4 times longer than 300.
300 is like 3 issues, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I only ever read
how-
it as the condensed thing.
Yeah. How long are those issues, though?
30 pages, I think.
If
I mean, even in
think
this,
less than
they're like
that.
30
and it's
pages.
mostly visual, so
Yeah.
there's not
Yeah.
a lot of. I mean, there's some.
I mean,
writing.
this had a lot more text in it than 300 did.
This had a
by,
lot of text.
Mm-hmm.
By a lot. And the first time I read it just to be like, is this something I want to pitch on the show? Because I like the art enough, and like I like historical fiction, so I'm like, I think this is something I'm going to dig, and I like Kieron Gillen, so I was like, I need to read it to make sure that I actually think it's something worth talking about on the show. So I read it really quick, and this time I took my time with it, because I was kind of like, oh, now I can kind of just like sink into the history of the era. And I think reading it like that, like not reading it as much as like a comic book, but more as like, I'm going to spend some time reading all the text, like getting everything out of it that I possibly can, looking for all the instances of foreshadowing, because there's quite a bit in this book. There's like a real cyclical nature to the story, where like at the beginning he tells the story of the revolt of the slaves and how the slaves beat the Spartans, and at the end of the story it's basically that's how the Spartans beat the slaves.
Right.
And so there's this whole role reversal of honor, and I think that stuff is all really clever, and I picked up on a lot of more of that the second time I read it. But I mean, I'm all about stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Did you have more that you wanted to say about the book generally?
That's not how you're supposed to say it, Toby. There's a way that you say this. So, Brant, you haven't said much. What did you think about the book? I've been listening to a lot of our episodes lately, and I realized very consistently all of a sudden that you have a very particular cadence when you're getting ready to lead someone in to talk. And you almost did it to Chard a minute ago, and I couldn't help but start snickering to myself.
Yeah, and I try not to do that, but like when I'm running the board when Chard's not here, and I'm trying to like keep the conversation going and get everybody involved and stuff, and my brain just does not go in that many directions at the same time.
I understand. I just thought it was funny to give you a hard time about it. I actually, sorry, I'm having like 2 conflicting thoughts. I'll go with the last one first, which is that it's hard. I mean,
Why don't you do the first one last?
no. Yes. Stop it. It's hard because I understand that you were prefacing it, Kayleigh, by saying, like, I thought it would be longer because it took a long time to get to me. But you said it also in a way that made me think of something that's come up for us a few times, actually relatively recently, which is folks being dissatisfied, Toby, about the length of a story and then, like, kind of charting satisfaction against it. And can't remember if you were here the last time that topic came up.
I know that Toby and I have talked about being dissatisfied with the length of a story before.
Yeah.
I don't
I was trying to
remember
remember what episode, because I've been gone a lot because of work.
There have been
recently, but-
plenty of instances where
Yeah.
either
I
I
was
felt
trying to
the
think of
story
the
has
most
been too
recent
short
one.
or too
I-
long.
And myself as well.
Yeah, Hikatea, I definitely.
Oh,
that
yeah, that
was
was the one
mine.
that
I was
caused a
gone
lot
for
of,
that one.
like...
Well, this one I think, like, when I thought about it, like, because I finished reading it and I was like, what the fuck? Like, did I only get half the download? That can't be everything. I must have missed something, like, clearly. But then when I started to reflect on it, I was like, no, that was a good length, I think. But it was just because I had a different expectation for it, which wasn't fair of me to, like, bring into the book. But I do think that the ending is really sudden, and I would have liked a little bit more resolve, I guess.
For which character?
For all of them.
Well, I mean...
Some of the resolution's pretty final.
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty final, but I don't know. I guess just done in a different way, just a slightly different way, or just a little bit more of like a development before that final. Like,
Yeah.
I found myself wanting more of it.
Yeah.
and I can't remember any of the characters' names right now.
There's Billy and Tupac.
Yeah, okay, Tupac has the dark hair, Billy is the blonde, and Shannon is the woman.
No, it's Nestor
Trepanandor or
Trepanandor.
It's Ter.
Terrapandor.
So.
And then whatever the lady's name is that I can't remember off the top of my head.
I can't think of anything but Shannon now.
I kept thinking, well, because he always refers to himself as "I'm a butcher." So
Yeah.
Like,
the butcher
guy, and then there's the annoying guy, and then there's the girl.
That's it, not Nestor.
The story Nestor guy is Trepnador.
Yeah,
and then the woman is like Tratus, or.
Yeah,
I remember because they talk about their name, like that they've named themselves,
right? That they get to pick their name.
Yeah, and hers was like Tamed Woman, or something like that. Was the name that she picked?
I remember there was a D, an R, and an A.
Yeah,
and then maybe another D.
No, it was definitely Shannon.
It was like spelled like Greek something.
This is an instance actually where I feel like the story was exactly the right length. Like if it had been any shorter, he would have had to leave something out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think if it had been longer, it would have dragged.
Yeah, because it's not a super complex story.
Right. Well, and if I had to quibble about the length, I could probably say like he might have adjusted like how much time he spent on various characters. Mm-hmm. But then I think somebody would have gotten short shrift.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that too, because there's the Spartan who is disgraced, the traitor that they send away to leave, and
the Trembler.
And he spends the time with his mother, and then he like is pissed off and he gets the armor. I was like, they spent a lot of time on that guy.
Yeah.
But then the second time reading it, I was like, I actually kind of dug his story because he's like disgraced, but he's like, no, I will uphold Spartan honor, and then he
that actually
royally fucks up.
That actually. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. It just like it leads straight into that ending as to like why he can sort of.
A question I had in my mind was, so when you're disgraced, they shave off half your beard. Does your disgrace last until your beard grows back, or is it like a permanent thing?
I think it's a permanent thing.
Because
his mom is basically like,
you're dead to me.
You're dead to me.
And they rip up his cloak too, which is like a Spartan symbol.
But here's one of the things that I recognize.
Damar is the woman's name.
Oh, okay.
So I think he intentionally. So I really like the way this ends, because if you think about this as a rebuttal to 300, you have this whole thing at the end where they're like giving speeches and doing this stuff, and it's like, oh, motherfucker dies by a giant rock.
Right.
Like, and it's like, no, this is how war is really won.
Right.
And I think the counterpoint to that is how much time they spent with that guy. And he's like, his mom's like, my horses are better than you.
Right.
Spartan honor, Spartan honor, Spartan honor. And then you're like, final conflict. Spartan honor is a bunch of assholes climbing up onto a thing and tossing a rock onto the sky.
And I like that the Spartans are like, oh, but King whatever would have never done that. And he's like, well, yeah, and that's why he lost Sparta.
Yeah.
It's because he was too proud. And I think that's a
the
good
the worst thing that you could do is what's the line? He's like,
oh, if there were no more Spartans, that would be the worst thing. Right.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing is the death of Sparta, not the death of honor or something like that. And I like it too because it mirrors the story of the slaves fighting with nothing with their bare hands and rocks to defeat the Spartans. And they show that image of the slave like crushing the last Spartan's head with a rock. And it's like, oh, I can see the parallels that you're making here. Yeah. Like, this is interesting. And I like that because that guy shows up is the reason that he has the armor that can allow him to like delay them for a while. It's the reason they have a third body there when they're like 3 slaves escaped. They never know that they're looking for 2 men and a woman, and so there's 3 bodies, and they're like, oh, guess we found them all, and they leave, and then she gets to go live as a free woman and raise, essentially kind of a statement on sort of genetic rebirth, I think, there, of like, oh, but my progeny will be free even though I wasn't.
Right.
So interesting. I think it had some good, cool statements. And then I love the king at the end when the Egyptian guy is like, the pharaoh's like running down the hill and he's like, I get to meet the king of Sparta, the greatest nation in the world. And the king's just like laying out on a rock, like giving up. He's like, fuck it, man, this is Sparta. Like, this is it. We're done. And I liked that as an ending. It's kind of like all great nations die.
Yeah.
In the ancient world, kind of, and so, or they metamorphise into new nations, and so the world was like it changed. I mean, it was still like hundreds of years that the Spartan Empire, or that not the Spartan Empire, but that Sparta was
the city
around.
state of Sparta.
But so like a long time compared to modern nations in some cases, but
so
still.
Cade, you've been pretty quiet.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been talking
a lot.
That's not true. We haven't been. This is a hallucination.
You guys have been doing good talking, as opposed to bad talking. No, I mean, for me, this book was okay. I didn't feel that it was anything to write home about, but there wasn't anything really bad in it, I guess. I was a little colored in the beginning due to the throw-up scene and looking it up that triggered my OCD
God.
like nothing else, and I had to put the book down for a good while.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really know.
It's funny because it opens with like a gruesome animal butchering. The slaves are butchering the animal, and then the slaves get butchered like animals. And that's still, though, licking up vomit is like the grossest thing in the book.
Well,
like it sticks
super
with
gross.
you way more than like people just getting hacked to death. I think that's weird because it's something we'd never see in comics. It's like the rarity of someone licking up vomit.
I've eaten bloody liver out of an animal.
Yeah.
Like fresh kill.
Yeah.
So I guess to me that's different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it is.
My family was big into the ways of like the Indians and stuff.
Well,
And like the butchering the animal doesn't get to me. It's like the similarity between like how they're butchered and the butchering of the animal. But like you see people getting hacked to pieces basically, which is grotesque. But
It is,
in
but
America,
I
we're
think
pretty desensitized to violence.
And that's exactly the point that I was going to make, that we have been desensitized as a culture to the imagery of people getting murdered.
that's also very true.
We haven't been
You see
desensitized
it
to
everywhere.
something like being forced to lick up vomit off a floor.
Which, if I had to choose between licking up vomit off a floor and hacking someone to death, I'm going to pick the vomit on the floor.
Yeah, right? But, like, it's not something that you're particularly exposed to, and you can kind of viscerally understand, like, how unpleasant it would be. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I know that there are people out there who have suffered grievous wounds and lived, and so they can viscerally understand what that's like. Mm-hmm. I really haven't, so I think that there's a limit on the extent to which I can conceptualize somebody brutally hacking me to pieces.
Right.
Whereas, like, I've vomited into my own mouth at various times.
It's
like,
gross.
I know what vomit tastes like.
Yep.
I can imagine that action, and I can be super grossed out by it.
But he was
have
drunk,
never
though.
puked. And I
never-
That is a lie.
I want to say one thing. Whole macaroni noodles in a bathtub, Miss Fleeman.
That was a figment of your imagination.
It was not.
I don't drink too much, and I don't puke up. And I chew my food.
You do not chew. None of those are true, is all I have to say. And it was disgusting. But yeah, he was drunk. He wouldn't remember. Looking up puke, he's fine. I like that they use unwatered wine, too. I don't know. For those who don't know, in the ancient world, wine was like super high proof, and they would carry it that way because then they could carry more of it longer distances, and then would water it down when they get places. So unwatered wine would be like the hard alcohol of the wine world, and it would be just like disgusting. And they say that like the Greece's toughest men would drink it. You know, like Alexander the Great would like drink 3 bowls of unwatered wine. You're like, that's not
Probably not.
That would kill a man. Like, you're out of your mind.
Believe that small beer is the same thing.
I don't know what that is.
It's basically beer that's been watered down, because you only need a very small amount of alcohol to purify water, like kill anything nasty in there. And so you brew the beer and then you water it down and just drink it. And it's called, I believe that's what small beer is.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's like an ale of the 1300s.
Yeah, but it's the same basic principle. You have a beverage that is alcoholic enough to make it not make you sick, but not so alcoholic that you just get drunk off of it.
Oh. This was like, it was for transport purposes, so it was like wine concentrate.
That's also where brandy comes from.
And then you would take wine concentrate and like water it down to regular
Sherry.
wine.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, well, brandy was wine where the water had been taken out so that they could transport it on ships more easily. And then just while they were on the ships, they would drink it.
Yeah.
Without watering it down again.
Right. So yeah, that is what
Yo ho ho and a
unwatered
bottle
wine
of
is
brandy.
then. Same thing.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed, indeed.
And so soldiers would carry it around. And I'm sure dip into it without watering it down. Because why not? Sometimes you can't find water.
That's right.
Yeah, actually, if I had to think of any character that I would want less time with in this story, it would probably be the king of Sparta.
Yeah.
Because his story is less relevant to the actual events of like what's going on with the escaped slaves. And that's kind of what I meant at the beginning when I said that the story suffers a little bit from Gillen being like, I want my story to be about this thing.
Yeah.
Like I want it to be a rebuttal of 300. And so you kind of need that element to kind of reflect what's going on in 300, because 300 is the story of a king and these other Spartans. But it doesn't necessarily serve the needs of the story that he's telling with the slaves.
No, I think it helps flesh out the setting in some way, but I could see less time being spent on certain.
I feel like I
characters.
spent that much time with them, but maybe I'm misremembering.
Are you talking about the king who goes to track them?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, and again, like I didn't think it was a bad story. I don't know that it necessarily needs changing.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick something, that would probably be it.
I think it helps to flesh out the relationship between the king and his like commander that he takes with him, who dies.
Yeah.
In the champion fight, and then it's like it kind of excuses his like extreme vengeance on this.
Well, it also explains why they come after these slaves with an army of guys.
Well, no, it's the one that dies right at the end.
Yeah.
The guy...
No. I'm saying that, like, learning about the king. Like,
oh, yeah.
Basically,
sure.
like, you know, you've got these 3 escaped slaves, and then, like, 300 Spartans show up to track them down. It's like, why is there such a disproportionate response?
And even he's upset about that.
And following the king's story, like, you understand, like, why all these things are happening and what the historical context for these things are and, like, who the council of the Ephors are. Mm-hmm. And then, like, Sparta's got 2 kings, and it's all the stuff. Like,
I just meant, like, when the king's ex-lover dies in challenge combat, it's kind of like, oh, well, no wonder he fucking dropped a rock on this guy. Like, he was really pissed off about this. And you see that, like, you know, kind of in those panels, like, briefly. And I think the pacing of the story is something, I kind of wish it was longer only so that there could be more art choreographed of the battle, so it could, like, make you feel like it took longer. Because I can read the action sequences so quickly that it's like, was that 10 minutes or 5 hours? Like, they tell you, but in the reading of the book, it's kind of hard to determine, like, he fought for 12 hours straight. Or you're like, that took 3 seconds.
And done.
So, I mean, action
no
always...
text on this page, look at the pretty pictures real quick. Okay, done.
Exactly, and that's...
Well, no, he took 10 rounds, and then he took a short rest to recharge his encounter powers.
Sure.
Sure
no, that's relevant.
Brant is shaking his head at me. 4th edition, no bad.
Even I don't think you should sully this podcast with D&D references.
Well, there you have
and I'm
it,
a D&D
folks.
player born and bred, but there's not the time nor the place.
I'm sure someone was tickled by that.
I'm sure someone
It wasn't
was.
me, but I'm sure it was someone.
It'll be me when I listen to this.
That's right. I was gonna say.
Hey, I giggled.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's what happens every time there's D&D references. I'm like, neat.
That sure sounds funny based on how you're all giggling. Sure.
I'm glad we're all talking about things we enjoy together.
Somebody out
as
there
friends.
may be one of our people, the nerds out there.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I'm sure someone caught the reference.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I
like,
don't know.
hopefully a couple weeks ago somebody caught my My Little Pony reference when I said Flutter Batman.
I'm sure they did. Someone's been drawing fan art of our jokes. I want you to know that. On
What?
Tumblr, yeah.
I have not seen this.
I sent Joe one that was a Batman making cookies, and it was the caption on Tumblr was just like, I drew a picture of Joe's joke from a couple weeks ago, and both Joe and I were like, what joke was that? Like, because we have bad memories, so we don't know, but it's like Batman in a turtleneck making cookies.
Uh-oh.
And we're like, I wonder what Joe said to inspire that drawing.
So now, if you're going to make more illustrations, you need to apparently reference the podcast, possibly a timestamp, so that Joe and Chard
so we can
go
look it
back.
up and
full
remember,
quote.
because
They can remember context.
Shit memory.
Apparently now I need to start going on to Tumblr.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I've been saying for several months now.
Yeah. A fate worse than death.
No.
It's so good.
It's the best.
There are many other places we could send you on the internet that would be a fate worse than death.
Like perhaps
Like
Reddit.
Toby's like, but I spend lots of time at Reddit. What do you mean?
Dude, our awe is where it's at.
All right.
Adorable kittens nonstop.
No, you don't understand. On Tumblr, there's Aw Cute, which just takes all the posts from our Aw and reposts them.
Yeah, so why do I need to go to a secondary source?
Because then you don't have to deal with the bullshit of Reddit.
Yeah, the way that you do that is you unsubscribe from all the terrible subreddits.
They're fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
People can politicize like a picture of a kitten.
Yeah.
It's stupid. That's why I don't go on Reddit anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
Each to their own.
I was never on Reddit because it's confusing and dumb.
All I can think of now is politicizing a picture of a kitten. How the fuck do you even do that?
Oh my God.
It's a kitten.
I'll
it's
send
easier
you
than you
links.
think.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
I've gotten
That kitten's leaning to the left. It's a leftist, whatever, Bolshevik freeloading kitten. It's on welfare and food stamps.
Yeah.
That's a right-leaning kitten. It's got a handgun. It's going to kill us all. We should have given a background check on that damn kitten.
Yeah.
Etc., etc., etc.
My favorite is the cat licking the PS4. And it's like, fake gamer cat. It's just doing it for attention. Literally my favorite cat post on Tumblr right now. It's so funny.
Oh my God.
I love it. Fake gamer
This
cats.
is why I sometimes avoid the internet.
Oh, it's a great place. Also a terrible place.
Yeah, that's why you should only subscribe to our
Pendulum
podcast and
swings
nothing
back and
else.
forth.
Yeah.
We'll tell you what the good stuff is by describing it to you.
Yeah. We'll describe pictures to you over the internet. It'll be a revelation.
I sense a new series coming on. Tobiah describes the internet. View from the Gutters presents
In the
Tobiah
grand
describes the internet.
tradition of Franklin Roosevelt reading the newspaper on the radio,
You will read the
I will
internet
read the
on
internet on the internet.
Please do. Just have a 24-hour Twitch stream of you reading everything you can find on the internet for 24 hours.
And here is a picture of bears with wings flying through the air with laser beams coming out of their eyes.
I will not
This is
repost it in the
awesome.
chat. I will describe it to you in detail.
So, Anonymous User 3, you haven't posted anything in the stream for a while. What do you think about the pictures that I'm describing on the internet?
And then I open up a window of my own Twitch stream on my computer and describe what I'm seeing.
That's right. And then
Perfect.
the universe explodes.
I am seeing a bearded man who is always wrong talking to me on the internet.
Whoa.
That would be Joe's Twitch channel.
I was going to say, that sounds more like a Joe comment. Cade is a medium tonight. Channeling Joe.
The ghost of Joe.
And our fans.
Oh, wow.
My favorite comments are the ones that are like, hey, also let Joe and Toby know they're always wrong. I'm like, I will, sir.
Yes.
I will do
they're
it for
the
you.
ones that are like, Joe is wrong about everything.
Yeah.
And then there are ones that are like, Tobiah is wrong about everything.
I love them all.
And then there are those few where it's like, no, they're both wrong.
I love it. I love
Which
it so
is
much.
inconceivable to me because one of us has to be right. Otherwise,
No.
our
No,
friendship has
that's
been
not how it
100%
works.
meaningless.
There
Was
are
it-
many possible outcomes.
What was it I said about Joe today? It was... Oh, so Audrey had, like, in our little chat feed thing that we have, she's like, oh, Dad's not the brightest bulb in the cabinet. And I was like, he's not the brightest bulb in a room full of broken and shitty light bulbs.
Wow.
That's a horrible thing to say about someone's father.
And then you should have pointed out to her that if she really said in the cabinet, that there aren't a lot of lights in the cabinet
There
either.
are
But
no lights in the cabinet.
special cabinets, maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know about you and your fancy cabinets, Brant.
I think sometimes it comes down to Tobiah is microeconomics and Joe is macroeconomics.
And they both suck.
In which
And I failed both classes.
Tobiah is wrong about the details and Joe is wrong about everything in general.
I think it's just that there are many possible outcomes to reality. And Joe and Toby are arguing about one possible outcome in which there are many others that they happen to have ignored. Making the argument mostly irrelevant.
and that's really the thing. I don't need to be right.
Yeah.
I never need to be right.
You just need Joe to be wrong.
I just need to be more right than Joe.
And that's
That's all that I ask
quality
for.
entertainment.
I'm gonna have that engraved on your tombstone. Tobiah Panshin, blah blah blah, more right than Joe.
Yes,
pretty much
please
the heart
do that.
of the debate tournament I was at this weekend. Everybody had to argue for points they didn't believe in. It's like, I know I'm wrong, but I'm more right than you.
Yeah,
Like,
that's how it works. You guys didn't talk about the art much on the show. Did you guys enjoy the art?
You know, it's funny, actually. When I first opened this book, I was like, I'm not going to get along with this art. But I actually warmed to it really fast.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I tend to be very hot and cold with art. I usually drive to it right away, or I tend to be like, toast. But actually, so much so that when I first started reading it, like the first 3 or 4 pages, I was just like, man, I would never be picking this book up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad I did, because the art turned around for me. The story turned around for me, and I was quite happy. I like this story quite a bit. So
it reminds me kind of like that Vertigo style in the early 2000s, where like the line weight's kind of heavy and the colors are a little muddy, but it like all meshes together pretty well. Like DMZ had that look, and
it's one of those things where at first blush I'm like, well, it's very workmanlike, like it's good, but I think really it's an issue of it's so good you don't notice how good it is.
Yeah.
Like, because nothing sticks out to you.
Right.
Like, it's not, like, it doesn't have a wild style where you're like, oh my God, this art is so crazy and bold and all these things.
Yeah.
But there's literally nothing bad about it. Like, I can't level a single complaint about it. Like, it does a lot of stuff really, really well to the extent where it just feels very natural.
It feels like it fits in a house style that doesn't exist. You know, like this could fit in with a lot of other artists, and you'd be like, oh, this is a consistent house style that I enjoy, but it's only 5 issues, so it's like there is no house style. It's just kind of, especially at Image, there's no house style.
Well, I think I was less
it's
a
becoming
fan.
less of a house style in general. Like the presence of one. I mean, like
I
think about some of the major artists at both the big two, and it's like there's not a consistency.
DC, I think, would be the closest to still.
Maybe. Yeah,
but
I was less enthusiastic about the coloring.
Yeah, it's a little muddier.
Yeah, it just feels kind of a little muddy, a little ordinary. Like there's not like a whole lot of contrast. It's just kind of there.
Yeah.
I feel like that's. I wonder how much of that's on purpose, because I feel like most of the story is kind of muddy, and then at the very last part, like the Spartan regalia stands out
against
the
blue backgrounds,
right? And so it's like I wonder if there was an intentional, like, because they're commoners, right? And the Spartans themselves are not necessarily like, you're not supposed to think highly of them per se.
Well, much like 300, like the red is the prominent color that pops out of everything. So it's all like browns and greens and blues, and then like the red, wherever it's happening, is just like massively popping out of everything. That first issue, there's like panels with red outlines in which the action is happening, and then there's that whole page where it's like Sparta, and it's like tinted red because it's like blood is everywhere. Yeah, and that's like the most intentional color choice, I think. And then the rest of it is very like kind of photorealistic colors, where it's like a little like it's just countryside, you know, like nothing's abstract or crazy. Like this isn't a, you know, it's not an interpretation of what this kind of looked like. It's like this is, I think this might be what it looked like, you know, kind of a deal.
I think for me it comes down to what Toby said, where it was like, it's not supposed to stand out.
Yeah.
To the point where I actually can't remember the art real well in panels, with the exception of the flashback ones, where everything went really gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those ones really stood out to me.
I kind of wish it was either a little bit more textured or maybe like a little bit more watercolory, like kind of give it a feeling of like this is a place and a time.
Yeah, it's pretty purposefully flat, I think. Like the shadows do a lot of the work for the art, and so there's not a lot of shading in the color. There's like some shading in the color, but it's like maybe 2-3 colors per, you know, base color, as opposed, it's not like huge gradients or like real painterly styling on there. And I think that works to its benefit a lot of times, because certain things can stand out so boldly. That like wind stuff. Brant's holding up a page where lots of shit's on fire.
Well, it's I thought you're saying like the light does a lot of work, like the shadow and stuff. Like clearly he's just, you know, it's like the firelight and stuff, and it's just such a brutal panel. But this is one of the things that caught me from that first.
But there's also like there's not a whole lot of contrast.
No, but I mean, if you at least from my recollection of being like in a room with lighting like this, there isn't.
No, that's very true. Like, I think that Chard hit it on the head when he said that it was photorealistic.
Yeah.
Like, it is a very, very realistic color palette that they use. Like, they try and make it look real.
Yeah, because it's historical fiction, so they're trying to put you in that place. You know,
right.
Like, this is what it would have looked like, you know? And I think the shadows do a lot of work, and the lighting does a lot of work for you, that the colors can be more simplistic and let those reds pop out and stuff. I really appreciate the colors in this book. I think it's subtle, but it works well.
It seemed really fitting for the story that they were telling.
Absolutely.
There's a picture that stands out in my head, and I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, there's a couple pretty brutal panels to me. The one where it's like the king, after the blonde-haired guy insults him when he's just like, they all die. And then it's that charge of the Spartans against them, and the panel where at the end, or near the end, when they're fighting the lone Spartan, and he's like, the long-haired blonde guy jumps at him and
when he
throws
takes
the swords
spear
down. He like grabs the sword and he's jumping at him, and then like throws the sword down as he's jumping so that he can grab the spear while it's inside him and like hold him down so the other guy can stab him. And he's like, that was always the problem with Spartans, is there's never enough of them, and then he gets stabbed. Like, those panels really stick with me too.
I feel like in the talks with the historian guy, somebody must have told him, Gillian, like, oh, and occasionally they would throw the swords at people, because that one guy like throws it like 3 or 4 times in a 4-comic thing, and it's just kind of like, either that's like his move, or it's like him inserting the fact that like it had a decent heft to it and you should throw it or something. I don't know, but it stuck out to me as like the one thing I was like,
I feel like I've heard like people, like real people who've trained with swords and stuff, be like, that is the stupidest thing you could possibly do, to throw your sword, because it's not weighted for it, and you've just thrown away your weapon.
Yeah. I think it's always against a guy who's running away.
Right.
Like, it's his last-ditch effort.
Right.
And
it works
like
one time.
And again, like, he's not a professionally trained soldier. He was a Helot to begin with. Like, he's a peasant that they armed during this fight with Thebes.
Right.
So he hasn't been trained. Everything that he knows about sword fighting is something that he made up.
Right.
Like, he learned that on the job. And so maybe one time he threw his sword at somebody and it worked.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's an awesome idea. I'm always going to do that.
Yeah. And I like that he uses the element of surprise and these specific tactics to excuse the fact that he's able to defeat these trained Spartans. I love when they're in the rain and they stuff the other robe under the woman's shirt, and they're like, "Oh, you look pregnant," and then they're like, "Please, we have to get to a midwife." And while they're distracted, he just like stabs them all in the throat and starts the fight that way. Mm-hmm. I thought that was cool. He's got to get close to him. It was good. There's some cool action panels in this book, I think. Yeah. I liked the conflict.
For whatever reason, the section that sticks out to me the most is Trembler coming home and his mother basically just totally ragging on him, and something about the way they draw his mom being like, "I wish she had come home."
Like, she's not looking at him. Like, her eyes are on him, but her face is turned away.
Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah, that was a hard scene to read.
I really like the scene too where the three of them stop at the shrine. There's that big statue. They like stop at that shrine on the way. They're like, "Oh, we'll just stop for a prayer break or whatever." And he's laying in the grass and he's talking, and the other guy is like, the butcher is like, "We should kill you. You know, you got us into this mess. We have to run away from our home because you got drunk and made an ass of yourself, and all our friends are dead now." And he's like, "But you were drunk, and I can forgive a man for his like
bravado in the face of being drunk."
Yeah, and I was like, "Whoa, that was kind of." I didn't expect that. Like, because that character is supposed to be a little bit hated in the early, because their first introduction to him is him like goading that woman and then like threatening the butcher and being like, "You're."
Well, because he's like a city-born. He's a city-born slave,
right?
Yeah, and they intimate that he's sleeping with basically the woman who owns that farm.
Right. Yeah. And other noble women.
Yeah.
Although I like the fact that when the Spartans come in and he's all like, "Ha ha ha," he's like, the Spartan commander guy is like, "So you are the first among lesser." Mm-hmm. Like, And he's like, yeah.
No, I think they set the stage really well in the early part of the first issue to get you to understand the culture really quickly, too. So there's a lot of good stuff going on here.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good stuff that's happening in the book. There's, like, I don't know, there's something about it that makes it, like, you know, a third base book rather than a home run. Like, it never quite gets all the way to me being like, yeah!
Yeah, but I mean, like
it's just like, yeah, that was okay.
Home run books versus third base books is going to be like disproportionate anyway. Like there's only so many books that can possibly achieve the greatest status. Otherwise, there's like.
Well, I'm not even talking about like these are the best books ever.
Right.
Like, I get to the point where I'm almost like, yeah, that's good. I like that. And I'm like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't quite get there.
The argument still stands, though, right? Like, there's only going to be so much that really tickles you in a way that is like, I love that.
Well, and ever so much more less for Tobiah.
That is true. But I mean, just in general, like, there's
or
only...
a little even more so for me.
Right. There's only so much that you can totally love.
There's a lot of stuff that tickles Cade. Oh, yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in that
camp. And again, I'm not talking about, like, I totally love this. This was great. This was amazing. I'm just saying, like, the difference between, like, I enjoyed this,
right, and
I thought that this was all right.
Yeah, no, I still same argument. It's just like there's only so much that you can actually like fully enjoy. So everyone has a different threshold for that, I think, because it's just like some people are going to read.
Yeah, well, I mean,
more stuff.
I think I've mentioned it before. I mean, or at least my opinion on that before, which is like some folks I think are better calibrated aesthetically to take things on their own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that anyone's bad who doesn't do that. It's just that everybody's tastes are different. Like, I find that I get into conflict with folks sometimes on this show and in other places because I have very broad taste. And so there'll be things that people are like, that is garbage. And I'm like, it was pretty good for what it was.
Yeah.
Like, I'm able to self-qualify.
Yeah.
Which
I brought Space Ghost on the show.
Well, it's all this would. I mean, I go back to this all the time, but
Space Ghost.
I really respect the sentiment that Joe brings up a lot, which is you'll forgive certain things based on like your perception of the work. So you're basically like, it's all about how much you're willing to forgive is all about how much you can actually enjoy something. So it may have massive flaws, but if it's like about all of your favorite subjects and has like all of your favorite colors in it and tastes the way you want it to taste, you're like, yeah, I can forgive that other like not so great part for all this other good stuff that I totally enjoy. And someone else may not like any of that stuff and be like, yeah, but it was just not good anyway. Why would you forgive that part?
This is why I have conflict with my father, because his tastes are even broader. And even I get fed up with certain things. I'm thinking of like Prometheus, the movie. And where even I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. I love aliens and everything about it. But even I'm just like, why are you doing that? Why are you trying to kiss that weird alien snake? And my dad's like, meh. Stupid people in space. It's just what it is. I'm like, no one's this stupid in space. I mean, you're right. The original movie, they were space truckers. If they were like, what the hell is that in there? I completely expect it. But these motherfuckers were like trained scientists? No.
Sort of.
They were.
Yeah.
The guy who gets killed initially is an exobiologist. He's like, these are aliens. I know because I study aliens and alien life, theoretically. I should take off my mask and get close to it. That surely would work out well.
Only an exobiologist, not a xenobiologist?
Or maybe he's a xenobiologist. Excuse me.
Maybe he's not a very good one. Well, like, did anyone look at his credentials? Like, what university did he graduate
what was
from?
his GPA?
What I would be hoping...
Did he go to Evergreen?
What I would be hoping is that any man who can afford to fly to space and give a TED Talk with a hologram could afford to check the credentials of his xenobiologist.
But maybe no one else wanted to go. You don't know.
That'd be kind of awesome. Yeah, we got like a 30th tier guy because all the actual xenobiologists are like too afraid to go see if
that sounds stupid. We're not going. Like, I have tenure.
That's right.
Like, I'm not leaving.
Yeah, I've only devoted my entire life to studying alien life forms. I don't want to actually go into space to study alien life forms.
I could die. I've studied them. I know what they can do.
I saw this movie once in 1979 called Alien. That shit fucked in like my mind, so I am not going out there. Oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I'd go.
Right.
I'd be that stupid guy on the expedition.
You would be the 30th
I would go too,
scientist.
I would go, and then I'd be like Idris Elba or whatever, like, I'd be putting the flamethrower on, being like, all right, we flame every room before we walk in.
Yeah. And then they still die.
Yeah, they still die. But only because the stupid scientists do stupid things.
Right. They didn't check their credentials.
And they trusted a creepy Michael Fassbender robot witch.
Right.
There's just a recipe for disaster.
Bureaucratic oversight doomed that whole mission, but that would not be an interesting movie. This is the guy,
really, on a mission
papers.
like that, 5 minutes into space, you just round up all the bureaucrats and stuff them in the airlock, and then nothing will go wrong.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well,
will all administrative and support personnel please follow the orange line? Will all of the scientists and command crew follow the blue line? Thank you.
I think it's a common movie fallacy to be like, he has an education. That means he's intelligent. And it's like, I don't know. I've met people with education.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, I think the opposite happens in most films. It's like, he's educated. He dies first.
Yeah.
Most of the movies I watch are like, does he know how to use a gun? No, he's going to die.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to go out on a limb and say, as someone who's both educated and knows how to go to use a gun, in many circumstances, my education would not help me as much as my knowledge of how a firearm operates.
Yeah.
However,
yeah,
I, a simple bachelor's/master's degree person in things that have nothing to do with biology, would not try to like get my face close to a bunch of aliens.
I really enjoyed the ending of like the last few episodes of Dollhouse and then sort of the subsequent comics that came out, because Felicia Day's character was like a political science major, and they're like, you went to college, don't you know this? And she's like, no, I don't. Why would I know anything about this?
That show is criminally underappreciated.
Yeah.
Although I have not read the comics.
And boring.
I didn't know there were comics.
Yeah, there's comics. There's not a lot.
Opinions remain divided on Dollhouse.
It's Alan Tudyk doing his very best Joker impression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And for the 30 seconds an episode that happens, it's a good show. And then for the however many hundreds of seconds that's not happening, results vary.
Yeah. I'm asleep for the other.
I can't argue with that.
Eliza Dushku's many things, a mistress of every form of character acting. She is not. This week, I'm a nuclear physicist. No, you're not.
That's true. Anyway.
I liked that it had Carl Hilo Agathon in it.
Yes. I do like him.
I think he was my favorite part of the show.
So do we want to move on to recommendations?
Yeah, if you guys don't have anything else to...
I mean, at the point of the conversation where we're talking about Dollhouse, as much as I may have enjoyed it, I feel like that conversation has reached its natural conclusion point.
Yeah, no, tangents usually indicate a lack of focus.
Well, check it out if you like historical fiction. There are not a lot of books out there.
Yes.
Dollhouse?
To have it.
Yes,
Check
Dollhouse.
out Dollhouse if you like historical fiction. And you can sleep through it like I did, because it's boring. And
if you slept through it, how do you know it's boring?
Because I fell asleep. That's how I know it's addictive.
I fell asleep in Gladiator 3 times.
That must be boring then.
I had to watch that movie 4 times to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened.
You were there for 2 of them.
I know, and I continued to be agog at the very concept.
Russell Crowe, man. Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Apparently,
exactly.
I was not.
Well, there you go.
And Dumbledore as Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, that was good.
Was he?
Yeah.
The first Dumbledore.
Wait, Richard Harris?
No.
Or Michael Gambon?
No,
Richard Harris.
Yeah,
okay.
it's
Okay,
not.
yeah.
The first
And
Dumbledore.
Joaquin Phoenix is crazy Roman Emperor guy. Yeah. Good stuff all around. Don't know how he did it.
That's an interesting
Jimon
time in
Hansu.
Roman history, too.
Yeah.
It was the end of the good emperors. Look it up. Marcus Aurelius was the last of the quote-unquote good emperors.
I have a copy of his meditations, and I read them regularly.
They were passing down lineage via selected successor.
Yes.
And then he died before he could pick one. So his
He
shitty
really
son
did pick one, everyone.
Yeah.
As detailed by the historically accurate Gladiator starring
clearly Russell Crowe.
Yes, that's right.
But, yeah.
If you want the real story of him, you can watch the movie Underworld starring Kate Beckinsale.
Right.
Wait, what?
And then Commodus, which is who Joaquin Phoenix plays.
Yes.
Is a shit emperor. So, there you go. Watch Gladiator.
If you liked 3, read 3. Oh, but if you like Gladiator, watch Gladiator.
Right.
Part of the historical record now.
Yeah. So recommendations.
Recommendations.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to pitch the book that I indicated I was going to pitch last week and didn't because I wanted to pitch The Hedge Knight, even though nobody picked it.
I almost forgot what you were going to pick, but I know what it is.
So I am going to pitch a book published by Archaea Press, created by Alyssa Milano.
Yep.
Yes, that Alyssa Milano, the only Alyssa Milano that you could possibly be thinking of, and written by Colin Carey and drawn by Jackson Lanzig. Written by Jackson Lanzig and Colin Carey, illustrated by Marcus Toe.
Yeah, Marcus Toe is amazing.
And this book is called Hacktivist. Yeah. This is a 4-issue series. It was published this year. It's out in hardcover now. I'm not sure if there's a paperback. There probably is.
I don't remember.
And this is a story about hacktivists, very much in the style of Edward Snowden. It's about these two guys who are basically creating their own open source Facebook communication tool, specifically so that it can't be controlled by governments and protesters and stuff can have an open platform to
Twitter.
Discuss things and organize.
Yeah.
And the NSA shows up and they're like, we want a backdoor into your system. We want you to work with us. And one of the guys says yes, and one of the guys says no. And conflict arises.
Right? They're brothers, right?
No, they're just friends.
Pretty sure they're brothers.
Are they?
I think so.
I don't know. I haven't read it yet.
I read it when it was coming out, which was several months ago.
Yeah,
so
and I was like...
Maybe that happened and I completely missed it.
We were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to pitch it. And you're like, you should wait till there's more. And I was like, Toby, it's done. It's over. There's only 4. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, I'll wait.
So we can steal it from you.
Right.
Well, I think when we talked about that, the 4th issue was not out yet.
I think that may be true, but it was always of 4.
I was going through it today, and I was like, I was looking at issue 4. I was like, I don't remember this happening. I don't think I actually ever finished reading this.
Excellent.
So yeah, Hacktivist.
Yeah, it's
created by Alyssa Milano. Super good.
Yeah,
it's got amazing art. It's really well written. It's a good fun time, and it's a quick read.
So it's her concept, but she
she came up with the concept. And then she hired these guys to write and draw it.
Yeah, and Marcus Toe's phenomenal, not to be confused with Marcio Takara. Those are 2 different people. And they're always standing right next to each other at Comic-Con. And they were telling me a funny story when I met them in Emerald City that... Because I got one of the books that they did confused. I was like... Because I follow them both on Twitter, or Tumblr. And I was like, who did the book with Brian Q. Miller that was on Kickstarter? And Marcus Toe was like, oh, that's Marcio Takara. People are always getting us confused. And they said at one con, they wrote... it was either Marcus Takara or they just combined their names into one person and put them at one table slot, and they both showed up and were like, there are 2 of us here.
We're 2 different people.
We're 2 completely different
Are
artists.
You sure?
Yeah, but they're friends, and it was funny. So anyway, Marcus Toe does some phenomenal stuff. I think recently did Cyborg number 9, Cyborg 009, the re-release.
Not following book. DC.
No, it's a remake of a manga.
Oh.
Yeah.
You don't mean Mighty number 9, do you?
No, Cyborg 009.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is an old manga that they did an American re-release for.
Right.
I don't remember what company did that.
I'm confusing it with the guy who made Mega Man is making a not Mega Man game.
He invented Zero, and he started working on Mega Man and Mega Man 2. Keiji Inafune.
There you go.
My hero, who also invented Dead Rising.
But so wow. I found out about Hacktivist because it was Alyssa Milano. I was like, really?
That Melissa.
Really?
Yeah.
And I read it, and it was actually really, really good.
Archaea puts out awesome stuff, but this is one of the first things I've ever read by Archaea that came out in single issues. So that was cool for me.
Artesia Archaea?
I think so.
That sounds correct.
Familiar. I'm not always the best at remembering publishers.
Yeah, that's Hacktivist.
Yeah, so read it. It's good.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay. Go for it, Cade.
So I had a book to pitch, but the only person in the room that I thought might like it said it was garbage, so I'm not going to vote or I'm not going to pitch it.
No, what was it?
I was like, I'm writing on Chard for this one. He might like this, and then he said it was garbage.
I would never tell someone to not read a book, but personal opinion, I did not enjoy this. It is a relaunch of a 90s title that wasn't awesome then, and
Is this the new Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
No.
No, that's incredible.
Yeah.
No,
also older than the 90s.
Yeah, I guess that is.
Anyways, okay, so what I wanted to pitch instead was something I've been talking about bringing for a long time.
I want to know what the other one is.
We talked about it before the show. Oh, you weren't here. It was, I'll say it, is the new reboot of Chaos Comics that Tim Seeley's writing now.
Gotcha.
It was from Brian Palladio's studio that had like Evil Ernie and Lady Death.
Yeah, Lady Death.
And,
okay, thank you.
There you go.
Had to know. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go on.
No, it's fine. I actually did hear good things about it, but it's like Tim Seeley, and so I thought Chard might like it, and then he says it's trash garbage.
I didn't enjoy it.
Okay, so what I want to pitch then is Matt Wagner's Trinity from 2004 to 2006, I think it was. This is a Batman and Superman Wonder Woman book, a alternate telling of how they first got together to take down Ra's al Ghul. And yeah, I don't know. It's the Trinity.
Here's Matt Wagner.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
Good deal.
It was coming out when I got out of comics, so I've never actually read it other than like the first little bit of it.
Yeah, I remember enjoying this one. This is Matt Wagner's Trinity and not the weekly ongoing series from DC Trinity.
Yes.
Which was not so hot.
Yes.
We've talked about before.
Cool. Anything else that you have to say about it, or just, hey, it's Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman.
And the art's really cool.
The art is cool. I was looking at it as Cade was flipping through it before we were talking.
I really dig it.
Cool beans. Kayleigh.
So I know I said I was going to keep bringing Captain Marvel back.
The fans are counting on you,
no,
Kayleigh.
y'all are assholes.
No.
Like, I'm done.
I'm ready.
I'm fucking done with all of you.
I'm ready to.
Does that mean I can recommend it?
Go for it.
Because then it would get picked.
Yeah, probably, because you're a white male.
Whoa. Whoa.
I more meant the fact that I bring a book 3 times, nobody votes for it, Brant brings it, and then it gets voted for.
How about the pitch, man? I don't know.
Hey, last week Captain Marvel came out, and I think it was my favorite comic book that came out last week, and so I was gonna vote for it, especially if you didn't pitch it.
No, that's really fucking nice to know, but too bad. I got other shit on my to-read list.
Kayleigh's not mad that we read Paradise X instead. And
No,
neither am I.
I definitely didn't bang my sprained pinky into a bar table and re-sprained it out of anger. That did not happen.
Okay, good.
That's what you get for breaking my glasses,
Well, good. My glasses also got broken.
which
so-
happened the same night that you sprained your pinky.
Yeah. And also the same night that I was covered in bruises. And that I discovered that leather corsets are actually pretty okay armor against foam swords.
A lot happened on a night.
Yeah, I was gonna say this probably brings up all kinds of interesting imagery for our readers. Or listeners.
Anyone who's listening was curious where I was. I was editing the show, which is what I do anytime anything fun is happening.
Yeah, I was at home with my son. No leather corsets or bruises for me.
So I'm going
that image is gonna stick with me.
I was hoping it might.
Just give it a few years.
I'm going to pitch something completely different.
Yay.
Miss Marvel by G. Willow Wilson.
Oh, yeah, baby.
The new trade just came out.
So
it's
good.
fantastic.
Number one trade in October.
Yep.
G. Willow Wilson. She is a sweetheart. I met her in Emerald City.
I saw her briefly, but I didn't get a chance to really meet her.
She signed my issue 1.
Nice.
I teared up a little bit.
So for those who aren't familiar, it follows Kamala Khan, who is a 16-year-old Muslim girl.
Yeah.
Growing up in Philadelphia.
Jersey.
In
In New Jersey. Northern New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like New Jersey, New York.
Yeah. It's like just across the Hudson from
some
New York.
East Coast.
Anyone
place.
that grows up, anyone that grows up in Jersey will tell you that they're from New York because New Jersey's embarrassing.
Or Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Talking like a true West Coaster. One of those cities over there, whereas all of us who've been over the East Coast are like, well, no. Philly is not New Jersey.
It really isn't.
So basically, she feels sort of ostracized by her community. She's in high school. A lot of people don't understand her, and she feels like people are kind of just waiting for her to like become enlightened, to not be Muslim anymore, to just shun her family and like her way of life. At the same time, she doesn't feel as strongly towards her way of life as like her brother and her mother and her father do, and so she's kind of in this middle ground. And I think that this comic greatly illustrates, if you give a teenager agency and the power, like power to sort of control their own fate, what good that they'll do with that. It's not just about like kicking ass, taking names. Like, she does a lot of good, and she does a lot of good not only for her community but for herself. So
I honestly
think fantasy novel. Then no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I honestly think that this is one of the
like
best
Batman.
teen superheroes since Spider-Man. And I think that she's very much evolving in the mold of Spider-Man.
I would say since Invincible, but I love this book, like to no end. I talk about it all the time on Top of the Stack. I fell in love with the character in the first issue where she is at like a small grocery store or a mini like corner stand, mini mart, like leaning in to smell the bacon in the like glass cases where they have the food, and she's like, I just want to smell the bacon, because she's not allowed to eat it because she respects her culture even though it like tempts her. She has an amazing family life. Her older overprotective brother's great. Her parents really worry about her. My favorite part of this character introduction, though, is that she is an Avengers fangirl. Like,
she writes fan fiction.
She writes Avengers fan fiction. She has Avengers hoodies. She's in love with the Avengers, and specifically Carol Danvers is her idol. And so it's really interesting, and the way she gets her powers is really cool.
I just love the fact that she has a family.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's dead.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. Like, it's not quite Spider-Man because, you know, people die in Spider-Man, but, you know,
well, I mean,
Peter
we're
Parker
only,
gets kind of in
we're only
trouble.
10 issues in. You don't know what's going to happen, aren't we? Are we only like 8 or 10?
I think the 8th one just came out.
So
maybe I'm wrong.
Stuff could happen.
9 came out.
Okay.
Oh,
But
okay.
there's great scenes with her in the mosque. Like, the women aren't allowed to be on the same side of the screen as the male people in the mosque. So, like, it's not a priest. Who is
The imam.
The imam, thank you, is speaking to all the boys, and all the girls are behind the screen, and they're all like texting and like not paying attention.
Yeah.
Because no one's looking at them because they're like hidden from. And so
And then they just like sneak out. 'cause
Yeah.
nobody's looking at them.
G. Willow Wilson grew up in this kind of culture, so she has these cool, fun insights into.
For some reason, I thought she converted to Islam later in life. But maybe I'm 100% wrong about that.
I honestly don't know. But it reeks of realism in a way.
Don't
that
waste all the
someone
conversation on pitching the book that we should be having while we're talking about the book.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just saying it feels real. It's good. I enjoy it. And the art.
It's great.
It's fantastic.
The art, man.
It doesn't matter what I pitch now. Everybody's already picked. I'm just kidding. Did you have anything else to say?
Nope.
I didn't want to cut you off.
What issues would we be reading if we picked
All of it. Everything.
1 through 8.
You want to
1
go?
through
9 or 1 through 6?
Everything. 1 through 8, 9, whatever's out.
Okay.
Read it all. It's good.
Can't argue
Why
with that.
stop? Can't stop, won't stop.
Okay.
Brant?
I got my Greek on, so I decided to merge two things that I have thoroughly enjoyed with this third thing that I've been talking about, which is that DC doesn't only publish crap. So I decided to pitch Blood and Guts, which are volumes 1 and 2 of the new Wonder Woman by Brian Azzarello.
God damn it.
Does this include the 0 issue?
I think the 0 issue is collected in volume 3, but I'm not 100% certain about that.
Because they came out, all the 0 issues came out after the first year, as far as I know.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
I say God damn it because I've been saying for months, like, I should read Wonder Woman.
It's good.
It's all right.
I'll do it as soon as we pick it for the show, because if it's not great, I don't want to have to read it twice.
I just like its take on things. Some interesting character design, some interesting choices. It's one of the few books, from what I can tell, that is successful at DC and is actually changing the character in the New 52. I mean, Superman's been changing the character, but I don't know that those books have been selling that great.
Well, it also was a cool jumping on point.
Right.
Because unlike a lot of the books of the New 52, like, it assumed that you knew nothing.
Right.
And it started from zero, and it changed the origin of the character, something that I wish more of the other books had done.
Right. Like, yeah, considering what New 52 was pitched as, it feels like the one that embraced the entire concept of how New 52 was laid out the most.
Yeah.
And I feel like the creative team that was assigned to it have actually made it successful by embracing those things and not, like, amping it all to 11, which I think is the biggest thing. Like, the thing I noticed about a lot of the New 52 was that either the status quo did not change in those books, certain books, and then Green Lantern, Batman. You know, like, new stories happened, but it wasn't like a dramatic shift in the books themselves. And then a lot of the other ones that were like dramatic shifts, Deathstroke, Hawk and Dove, all that stuff, like, felt like, you know.
What was the one that Martian Manhunter where they like shoehorned him on?
Oh, the Authority.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it felt like an earnest attempt to be like, all right, everybody, let's just crank this up to its max volume and rock out.
Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Yeah.
Gross.
Where it's just kind of like Teen Titans with its really pervy covers. So yeah, just the Cliff Chiang and Brian Azzarello, just, I don't know. I feel like they brought a good game to Wonder Woman and have made some interesting stuff out of it. And
I feel like they read the press release for the New 52.
Yeah.
It's like, it's an all-new universe. And they were like, oh, cool, let's do all this new stuff. And everyone else was like, what's happening? Oh, well, tell the same old stories. And so in that, for that respect, I can respect it. It has come under some fire for some of the changes it made to the character.
Well, of course.
It didn't go far enough for some people.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be people that complain about it. But and I have some issues with it as well. But it is pretty strong and worth checking out.
Good deal. Chard, what do you got?
Well, surprisingly, this week I brought an image book.
We might actually be out of the teens on image books pitches.
Yeah, I think this might be 20. I
think so.
My memory is not good, and I've been missing a couple weeks because of work, so I lose count really quickly. But this was, and I was looking for, while we were talking about some of those books, I was looking for, a fan suggested this to us, and was talking about it. And I can't remember who it was, and I can't find the message. So if you suggested this to us, thank you, because that's the reason I picked it up. This is the image book entitled Zero. Do you guys remember who?
I've not heard of this.
Oh, okay. It's set in the near future, which is like, I think the story starts in 2019. But it's basically this organization called the Agency, which is this like shadowy spy network that raises these kids from a super young age, kind of like Ender's Game style, to be ultimate spies, and are like, it's kind of Assassin's Creed-y in some way, where they have like these mantras that they say to kind of like brainwash them into being like ruthless killers. And it follows the story of, I think his name is Edward Zero as the main character. He's like one of their agents, and his handler and his handler's boss and his friend, who's also in the agency. And it's a cool mix of like, you know, kind of Queen and Country, and there's a little bit of like, what's that book that Mind MGMT, where it's like this secret organization that the government doesn't know about, kind of deal. And there's cool assassination missions. And one of the fun things about this issue that kind of pushed me away from it at first, but I actually really enjoyed upon reading it, was every issue is drawn by a different artist. And so it, like, part of it feels like really disconnecty, but because it's told sort of out of order and things are taking place in different parts of the world, and there's like flashback issues, and there's this is what's happening now issues, the art seems to actually help that in the book, and I really like that. So there's a flashback issue that's drawn that is drawn entirely by Tradd Moore and is almost entirely monochromatic because it's a flashback. And Tradd Moore, who did Luther Strode and the all-new Ghost Rider, and it's really fluid and awesome. And there's some amazing artists that worked on this book, and the story's really intense. It's pretty brutal. Trying to look at the creative team right now. Hang on, I'll find it. And it also has these cool debriefs at the end of every issue, where it's like these redacted like debriefs of what happened on the mission and what went down. And I've been really enjoying it so far. I think I'm on 9 issues of a total of 11 or 12. And I've been enjoying it quite a bit. The first 2 trades are out, which contains the first 10 issues. And I think that we should check it out. It's pretty sweet.
Nice.
Cool. And a cool new ongoing Image book that I had not read until this week. So thank you to whoever wrote in. I'm sorry, I can't find your message.
Thank you, mysterious stranger.
I can't find your message. I'm sorry.
Cool beans.
Yeah. So, Brant. No, who went first? Cade? No,
I did.
You did, Toby. What do you want to...
Fuck.
What would you like to vote for?
Fuck.
You can say Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm voting for Captain Marvel. I'm taking this show off the tracks.
Captain Marvel.
Breaking all the rules. No. I am going...
I just want to see how mad Kayleigh will get when she's like, I didn't even pitch it.
And next week we read Captain Marvel. And next week it's just her on the show because we're all dead.
Ms. Marvel. I'm voting for Ms. Marvel.
All right. Oh, Ales Kot is the writer of Zero. It's Aleskot.
And I want you to all know how hard that pick was for me.
All right. I think we know because we're about to have to make it too.
I would have broken your glasses again if you didn't pick it. So.
I am not wearing glasses right now.
I would find glasses of yours.
She would drive to your house, rifle through all your things, and find a pair of glasses.
I have 2 pairs of decoy glasses.
She didn't say they had to be the right ones. She just said she was going to break a pair of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next time you pick wrong, I'll...
So when I heard Kayleigh was going to be on the show, I knew I was going to vote for Captain Marvel.
I was all set to do it.
I'm going to go with Miss Marvel.
All right. Kayleigh.
I'm going to go with Zero.
Sweet. Brant, what would you like to read?
I'm going to go with Zero.
Welcome to Thailand.
I'm doing this specifically to make you have to at least put up a marginal fight.
Oh, yeah, well, I have to vote for Ms. Marvel, which is the only book I can vote for without causing a tie.
Yeah.
Which is a book I love, so congrats to me.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Do we just want to read the first volume, or should we read all 9 issues?
Let's read all 9. It's not that long.
Yeah, let's go for all 9.
Okay.
And they're all good. There's cool stuff that happens in those later ones. There's some team-ups, and it's cool to see her kind of meet up with characters in the Marvel Universe at large.
It is
Lockjaw
super cool.
And Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
And Medusa.
Sorry, any listeners out there who are trade waiting.
I told you they're in the book. That's it. That's all I said.
Plus,
so.
No, just over Tumblr.
That we're going to be reading all the issues.
Whatever. They'll find it.
That's
They'll
fine.
Find a way. Life will find a way, Toby.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
And thank you. And I, for the record, I would have voted for Wonder Woman if I had not been forced to break a tie.
Well, it was your own book, too, so...
Well, I couldn't vote for it.
Right.
I would have.
So, an interesting thing about Wonder Woman, though, and this is why I asked about that Zero issue. If you read that Zero issue first, the series is hard to read.
Is it?
The Azarella series?
I don't know that I've read the Zero issue.
No, I don't know anything about it, so don't spoil it for me.
It's completely different, and I'd probably recommend not reading it.
Okay, that's good advice. I did not know. A lot of times the Zero issue comes out after the series has been going for a while.
Yeah, well, and this whole thing was that like the Zero issue was their origin, and I'm just kind of curious to see what Cade thinks.
Well, they also redid her origin again in the DC ongoing series Secret Origin, in which they retold Wonder Woman's origin in the New 52.
That was different than the Zero issue.
And different from which was different from the Zero issue for the New 52 book, in the New 52 book. In a New 52 ongoing.
It's weird. Start with number 1.
Yeah.
Just start with
you'll
number
be fine.
Yeah,
Start with the beginning of volume 1.
Yeah, just get the trades. Or don't buy them. Don't give DC money, but steal them. Or...
Go support your local library.
Yeah.
And take them out.
Exactly. Thank you.
Or steal them from like Barnes & Noble or something.
Or like
that'll
a
be
person
fine.
you don't like.
Yeah.
Actually, Kit has the first 2 volumes out from the library. I was at her house last night, and I picked it up, and I'm like, oh, have you read it yet? And she, like, went full, like, spitting cat angry, like, put those down, I haven't read them yet.
Wow.
Well, don't touch other people's stuff, Toby.
It's
that's
a
weird.
library book. Nobody owns that.
The library does.
But we're the library, Chard.
What?
Soylent Green is people.
No! That's why I have to bleep that out.
Uh-oh. Spoiler alert. Oh.
All right. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Night, everybody.
And we didn't get any listener questions again. I'm disappointed one more time.
Yeah, we keep forgetting to ask them. So if you have any comments on Ms. Marvel,
yes,
or questions, send them to us before Monday the 24th.
And also read Nazca.
Yes, because that episode is going to be coming out in a few days.
Yeah.
Or if you have questions to clarify our positions on 3.
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
It doesn't only have to be questions about.
Well, I mean, we get lots of comments on the Facebook page and the website about things that we've already talked about.
Yeah.
But we want to solicit audience questions before we talk about it, so we can talk about them on the show.
Yeah, and if you have questions or things you want us to discuss specifically on the show about the book we're going to read, send it to us, please.
Yes.
At contact@viewfromthegutters.com.
Yes,
which we have actually said at the end of both of the last episodes.
Good. I thought we had been.
I thought we'd missed one, but anyway.
Anyway, I'm disappointed in all of you. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to View from the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.